podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Bjork, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hey AW, tell us how did your workshop in Ghana wrap up, and where are you headed to next?
It's still got one day left, but it's been going fantastic. The group has been very interactive and excited to learn. And I talked to you earlier on before we got started that some of the topics that have really been resonating with them, and I thought it might be good to bring to this podcast today.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, from what you shared with me, we're going to be talking about the 6 pillars of leadership, predominantly the three that we can intellectualize here. So, why don't you educate the audience on the 6 pillars, and then we can go into a deep dive on the 3 that we selected.
Sure. It's called the types of supervision, and I'm basing it off of Belmert's book, Alive and Well at the End of the Day. And it's a great book because it's addressing supervisor behavior and the importance of safety, particularly in the oil and gas industries and in other sectors of manufacturing. But in the book, he talks about, and this is kind of what I shared with the group that I was with today, that you can categorize everything that a supervisor does in around 6 steps. Beginning with the first, where we talk about active supervision. So if there's active supervision, there's passive supervision. And you might go, well, what's the difference between that? So active supervision is that person that's out there. They are with their team. They're working in the place to be actively engaged with them. They're tapping them on the shoulder, asking what needs or wants that they may have. A passive supervision is the one that's just waiting for things to happen and react to them.
Yeah.
And what's funny, and those that are familiar with it might be able to identify it, but sometimes you can't see that while both are very active, engaged, ready to solve the problems, one of them is doing stuff that's proactive and preventing things from happening. The other one is firefighting and, often neglecting a lot of the other activities because he or she is focusing on the here and now versus the other one who's looking at the future.
It's almost like letting your day control you versus you controlling your day, letting your phone control you versus
yeah, it's exactly like that.
The same concept could be applied. So cool. So active is proactive. It's the person who's looking out for what could be in the future a roadblock to their employees and hitting that and removing that roadblock before the employee even gets there. Where on the other side of that, there's the reactive and passive model, which is letting the employee hit the roadblock and then saying, how did we hit this roadblock? How can we stop hitting this roadblock? We can't hit this roadblock ever again. And you mentioned that there was a third one, which was coaching.
Sorry. Thanks for reminding me.
So let's hit that a little bit, and then we can dive into some of the other topics we have for today.
Yeah, so it's influencing the knowledge. It's the ability to understand the flexibility, to understand when there's a good coaching moment. Sometimes it's in the meeting room, sometimes it's one-on-one. But one thing I don't want to go unheard of is that even though you can be a active supervisor, there's going to be times, sometimes you fall into that passive supervisor mode. It's inevitable. We're people, we work with staff, and you need to be supportive at that time. So there's always been, you always want to move to the active, but understand there's going to be points where you're in that passive mode.
Sure. It's like anything in life. There's a balance, and there's no, you can't be all one or the other. You definitely have to be able to,
try your best to eliminate those fires, but when they come up, firefight like hell, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so on the coaching, I think that in my career, I would say that I had one really great manager who really, I think, helped me to push myself beyond what I thought was possible and helped me to outline goals. So when I think of that, I think of him helping me say, like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to achieve? How do you think you can achieve them? Like, from your perspective, and maybe somebody who's had a different experience with the coaching piece, or maybe you're the person coaching the people on how to coach them, their employees. Like, what do you recommend for a supervisor who's maybe new and hasn't had that lead by example point of reference? Or somebody who maybe does, but it wasn't the best example to that they want to embody? How would they coach their employees?
Well, it starts with being open to listen. And sometimes that's all you need to do. A lot of times I see a lot of supervisors who are a bit younger than the people that they are supervising.
Yeah,
And you certainly need to respect that and acknowledge that and hope they also respect the position. But, being open to listen and talk about it, be upfront about it, and to be active, not to be passive, wait till something goes wrong and then have to jump through those hoops that's now been created that is going to create turmoil.
right. So I heard two things that you said that I'd like to elaborate on. So the first was when you're coaching and you're managing a staff from a place of maybe disproportionate responsibility or whatever, the best thing that you can do is make sure that your employees are positioned to succeed and have the
Yeah.
best resources, and that when they do bring complaints, that they're validated and actioned. The other thing I heard was like providing good feedback, right? So I had a situation just yesterday where a coworker, a colleague of mine, he is not a direct report, but org chart wise, it's just one of those things where I'm definitely a person who can help lead that team, even though they're not
Sure.
my personal direct reports. And I take that responsibility very seriously. We were talking about interviewing, and I said, well, how are we going to prevent you from hiring another person who's not equipped to do this job? And he said, well, I'm asking him questions. And I said, well, what questions are you asking? And then we went into that. And I said, okay, let's reframe this. Think about the top three things that a best employee is going to do, and think about the top three things that the worst employee is going to do. And let's make really specific, catered interview questions to those characteristics. And we really workshopped it. We came up with like, okay, the role requires agility and like solutions oriented. Like there's going to be constant changes. That's literally what the role is meant for, is managing scheduling change. And they have to be able to communicate that and also not get frustrated by spending several hours building a schedule and then the next morning have that all be wiped to crap and restart and juggle things around to make it work. So you want somebody who's going to thrive in that type of position. And I coached that coworker of mine. I said, okay, let's ask a very specific question, on how that person would handle those changes and how they would communicate the challenges, constraints, but then also still come up with solutions. So that was like, those are some examples I think the audience can take of like, you may ask, well, what questions are you asking? And then your subordinate tells you, blah, 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 blah. Really take that next layer to understand, I think, what could be done to really take it to the next level is, I think, my advice to the group.
Yeah, that's good advice. In the in some of the I guess advice I've given back is, and I don't know the right answers, but having good questions to ask and being open to listen to them. The idea is, and being approachable, being seen, being able to be asked by them, or so that they can come to you. I think that creates value, and they can have an open conversation, because there's different personalities in the world. Not everyone's going to be knocking on your door, and some you might have to tap on the shoulder a little bit when you see something that's when they're not acting right, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Elon Musk is famous for doing this in his organizations. What he does is he skip levels. So if he would typically go to a general manager, he goes to one person below that general manager who's actually doing the job that they're questioning, or, considering rearranging, or
Oh
they're
yeah,
facing a bottleneck with, right? So that's another way to be more approachable and also problem solve and be in that state of active
yeah,
supervision,
yeah.
right? So those are some ideas for the team or for the audience to think about. You mentioned an interesting concept that I would love to have you expound more on. You mentioned moments of influence. So
Mhm.
can you explain to the audience what a moment of influence is? And then, maybe if you have any ideas on how somebody could best capitalize on getting the most out of those moments.
The moment of influence is when someone is the most attentive to receive information. And it can be considered, you think about your first day of work. Um, you're going skydiving. You might want to listen to which cord you're supposed to pull. It's starting something new that you haven't done before. That the person is in high attention, and there's an injury that occurs, or there's some kind of just a crisis at a facility, or there's something happened with your family, or something or other, that it gives you a clear point to talk to that person and know that they're all in. They are trying to suck in that knowledge. And
Yeah.
if you've got the right message going through it, if you're prepared for it, there's the probability is X factor.
Yeah.
And it's about having that pocketed. So when those things do happen, that it can simply just be mentioned at once, and then knowing that they're going to learn, they're going to understand, and it's better in themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, number one, get the message and set the level of expectations before bad habits develop. That's kind of one of the ways I think about that. And then the other way I would think about what you said with the moment of influence is like, we all know that in psychology, we anchor memories that have a strong emotion tied to them, right?
Right.
So if we're anchoring like this safety near miss situation happen, the emotion of that person is going to be high. So then therefore the messaging is attached and associated with that can be equally anchored into that person's memory. And it'd be a lot more effective than if you're just sending random, memos out, or just making a quick announcement when there's really no direct correlation to like the person's experience in that moment.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So that's a couple of other things that
Yeah.
I guess I had brought up is um, giving feedback, both positive and negative. Avoid the famous, do you have a minute? I don't know if you've ever heard that one, probably. Start with the strengths, give authentic praise, be meaningful of it. Find something that you really like, that think they're doing well. There's always something. Keep the focus on the issue. What else is there? Give the person the opportunity to reflect, and ask any questions that they might have.
Yeah. And I almost feel like too, in those scenarios, if you're especially trying to enable a behavior change or an improvement or something like that, you can probably see a much better success scenario when you ask the employee and guide them to ask them to suggest solutions. You want to make them
Yeah,
part of the plan, part of the process going forward, versus just saying, hey, here's what you're doing great. Here's where you're lacking. Here's your 1, 2, 3 steps to succeed. Like, it just feels so different when you're the supervisor just shoving, basically force feeding your employee this information, this prescribed set of tasks, versus pulling it out of them and letting them kind of think it's their own idea and ushering and being that support system to help them succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. It's funny that we bring all these things up. I was having a thought yesterday about coaching and like employee engagement, right? So I have a friend who owns a pretty large trailer maintenance company. And I was thinking he's always out in the field engaging with his team. And I am inspired by it. I'm impressed by it. He's literally working with private equity people in the morning, and then his team of mechanics who are out there actually wrenching in the afternoon. Like, he is literally all over the place doing these things. Or one day he's doing private equity, the next day he's out in the field with his team. And I thought, how different or how amazing would it be if every entrepreneur in, even if it's somebody who's running a manufacturing company or any type of organization, where they carved out a specific amount of time, whether it's bi-weekly, month, quarter, whatever, and they set 30 minutes aside to just meet with not random employees, but a group of employees, individual though, one-on-one, that they wouldn't normally interface with. So they're not constantly exchanging emails, they're not
Yeah.
constantly doing work together, but it's just, hey, how's it going? Like, who are you? What can I do to help you? And that touch point is just so much more meaningful. And then on the flip side, the people that you are interfacing with, I think a lot, still setting that 30 minutes aside to get to know that person and say, hey, how's your family? How was your vacation? Having those non-business conversations just instantly boosts morale. And I think the level of commitment and camaraderie within a group. So I know I did that in my management past, and it made a really big impact on the change and the positive, effects of the team that I was managing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
What else? Like, what have you seen from the group that you've been working with on this? Like, have they brought any ideas that we haven't covered today to the table, or what are you hoping to get out of that with them?
They're a very, very interactive group. So I got the chance to go to their daily meetings. And the one thing I think it's and I always see this, and it's that when someone's makes it look easy, they're good at it.
Yeah.
And I was at a toolbox meeting, which is there's their morning shift meeting. And I stumbled in by accident. I didn't know what was going on. I walk away, they pull me back. So, oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to come to your meeting. And it was this just you could see the person, relaxed, interacting, saw that he ran the room and he was giving them direction. They're putting stuff on the board and they were just comfortable with it. And that's something I got to talk to him before I leave after tomorrow, but we didn't get a chance to talk today, just to give him that feedback that, hey, I could tell that, they respect you a
Yeah.
lot, and you
Yeah.
are you are running a tight shift. Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. And even you'd wonder how have the meetings progressed or shift, or how did he get to that point where it became so second nature for him?
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
are some of the things. So cool, cool. Is there anything else that we want to talk about here on this episode before we clock out?
That was a lot, and I wanted to probably let it, it's probably a good ending point, because I think that it was a great conversation, and I know you were asking me what you want to talk about, and I said let's talk about active supervision, because I think it's not talked about a lot, and identifying it is pretty powerful, especially if you're a manager and you're seeing your supervisors act in what is active versus passive supervision.
Yeah. And I think, if there's any one fine point to put to this, it's, every layer up in the organization should be, and hopefully is, fostering this culture of active management and active supervision. And if everybody is doing that top up to top down, I think an organization is you're going to see it. It's just going to be coming out of the organization's pores.
Okay. So I think it's time to close out, right?
I think I'm clocking out.
All right. Well, this is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished product. Take care.
Bye.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.